Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, February 26th. Roll call.
Chairperson Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Progachnik,
Here.
Commissioner Petrangelo,
Here.
Commissioner Corjolios,
Okay, let the record also show that ex officio Pat Green and Tina Glad are in attendance, as well as our city administrator, Greg Brzezinski. And,
Community Development Director Olavanti.
okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes. Approval of the Planning Commission minutes for October 17th, 2023. Note corrections, additions, or deletions, if any.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that. Motion's been made and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the Board of Adjustment and Appeals minutes for October 17, 2023. Note corrections, additions, or deletions, if any.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
I'll second that. Motion's been made and second. All those in favor signify aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approval of the Planning Commission minutes for November 27th. No, any corrections, additions, or deletions, if any. I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
The motion second. All those in favor signify aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Acceptance of the agenda. Acceptance of the agenda for recording purposes. Note any additions, deletions, or changes, if any.
Make a motion to approve. New business.
I'll second that. Motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. New business, convene the public hearing scheduled for this time to hear a presentation of the Hibbing Housing Study findings given by Community Development Director Betsy Olavanti, referencing the comprehensive housing needs analysis for Hibbing. That was completed October 2023.
Fabulous. So I'm going to approach the podium so I can use my, my screen and the presentation, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
So excellent. Thank you, Chairperson and Commissioners, for the opportunity to come and present the comprehensive housing needs analysis to you all tonight. We have quite an undertaking here in Hibbing for our housing needs, and I wanted to bring it before you so you have the information just the same as the City Council and the EDA do, so that you're part of our team to start moving this forward as we go down this journey for housing. So as of December 20th, 2023, Maxfield presented the comprehensive housing needs analysis to the Hibbing City Council. And I gotta advance here. Maxfield Research and Consulting is the group that we used with, we partnered with our Hibbing HRA. They got a grant through Minnesota Housing Partnership to do this housing needs analysis for our community. And Maxfield was a consultant chosen. They have 40 years of experience in this industry and are a full-service real estate advisory company providing strategic value to the private and public sectors. So they are very well known in the state of Minnesota and have done a couple of different housing studies that you'll see for the city of Hibbing. The objective was to provide a comprehensive housing study. So we wanted to look at what we need and what our needs will be going forward and what we currently have. And so the approach was to identify current and future housing needs for residents in Hibbing and provide a framework for meeting those needs. So you'll see a little bit of that at the end of this presentation. We asked for short and long-term housing needs, we asked for some recommendations, and we asked for some tools and policies, which is why it's coming before you today. The final report was then presented in December to City Council. Any questions as we get started?
Does this include the whole scope of the area of Hibbing?
Yes.
The whole entire land from up by Day Lake all the way down to South Town Line Road?
Yes, actually, you will see what that study area looks like. That'll be in the next slide, so I'll show you exactly, because we went a little larger, our market area, or our target market area was a little bit larger, and I wanted to show you that so you know what we're talking about. The background for Maxfield is that they did the 2005 and 2010 housing studies for the city of Hibbing. They incorporated the 2020 census because 2024 hasn't been quite completed yet. And then they talk a little bit about where we're at post-pandemic from this and how that's affected housing. So here is that study area that you were asking about, Commissioner Podachnik. You'll see it takes into account Sand Lake, French Township, McCormick, goes over a little bit into Nashwauk, Great Scott Township, sort of a comprehensive study area where anybody who might work in Hibbing might live. And also understanding that these 10 townships and 6 cities would encompass sort of, if they build houses right next to Hibbing in Nashwauk, that's going to affect the need and demand in Hibbing, right? And so it sort of takes that part into account as it moves forward, that any house built in Nashwauk is also good for us, that would address a need for a house built. So this is the study area, which was consistent also with previous housing studies. And then it acknowledges that the city of Hibbing is really the economic driver of that study area. So that's why we kind of centered it around our community. The population is declining but steady. We've known this for quite some time. You can see from 2020 to 2000 to 2020, there hasn't been much significant shift in the population of Hibbing. Partly this is due to a lack of housing. Folks do want to live here and want to raise their families here, but we have a lack of available housing stock. So that is sort of playing into that a little bit. Yes.
I have a question, as to, our growth has been pretty stagnant for about, quite a few years here now. And yet we have a housing shortage. And why haven't we addressed this at an earlier time instead of getting to this point where we're really realizing how much shortage we do have? I mean, obviously we must have known that years back. And going from, communities, you'll see the smaller communities seem to be a little more aggressive with
Proactive.
this.
Correct.
Where a larger community like us doesn't seem to be as aggressive.
Commissioner Petrangelo, I think in the past, our private sector was able to pencil out these deals and move those forward. So I've been talking a lot to our real estate agents and builders and developers in our community, and there's an issue more recently with deals penciling, meaning the profit and loss working out so that they can make a little bit on the homes that they're building. And so the only homes that make sense to build profitably are the houses 350,000 and over. And that's not necessarily a starter home for our community. And you'll see that borne out in this study as we move through.
Okay,
that.
well, remember, like, what's that, River Creek, which Perella and Saban were involved in. That was all them, They put in the sewer, they put in the roads, they put everything, Now, a lot of communities, and I'm just gonna use Chisholm as an example, they put infrastructure and, made that one section of Chisholm, so people could build houses there. Has Hibbing ever did that?
We have worked with private developers to do that. We haven't necessarily done that as a city, at least that I can see in the last maybe 5 years. So some of that is addressed in here, that our platted lots for development, which I know Pat is very familiar with, most of them have been platted for the last 10 years.
Correct.
Yeah. So there have been lots addressed, and you'll see that in this study tonight as we talk, but they're not necessarily being moved on. And when I've asked some of the developers and builders why they're not moving, it's because they're not necessarily able to make those deals, profitable for them and also for the homeowner to be able to afford the mortgage on it.
Well, of course, because of the fact that if it's a private entity, obviously, and they have to pay the city to put in sewer or water, they have to get onto that, side of the road. That costs them money, so they have to incorporate that cost into the sale of the house.
Correct. Yep.
And that's what I'm saying, it seems like the smaller communities somehow or another find a way to get that done. And
Right.
Hibbing has not found a way to get that done.
There hasn't been anybody in my role since 2012, and so maybe that's part of it. That there just wasn't capacity necessarily to plan that way in the city. So that was one of the reasons City Administrator Przinski and Mayor Kanata, before he retired, were keen to get this role filled.
But obviously, I mean, I've been here pretty much my whole life, and and owned a business in this town, and I do know that, were people like you there, but it never seemed that anything ever came forward on something like this. And obviously, the mines are booming right now, people are working and, overtime and everything, and, so now it seems like, now we gotta rush to try to get this all going, because these people can afford these a little more expensive houses. And obviously, there are some older houses in the Hibbing area. I live in one of those areas, Brooklyn,
Sure.
So, there is a lot of, my house was built, I think my parents' house built in 1941, just to give you an example of that, So, now all of a sudden now, miners aren't gonna look at my house, cause, it's a single, it's not a single family home, I'm making it that, but they want the nice houses, like River Creek, like out by the golf course, the Masabi, those type of things, and I do know that, that spot where the townhouses were built by, I think it was.
Mr. Icorn is doing well,
Icorn,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
He
He's
sold those
building
things
and
as
selling,
fast
yes.
as he put them up.
And so you'll see in this
Yeah.
housing study that that's one of the areas they suggest we do more of. Because
Yeah.
as you look at this population change right here, our population is growing in this 65 and up, right? So a lot of those folks, if they're independent living, market rate, they want something that they can be snowbirds, they don't have to maintain a lot anymore, that sort of thing. And that will create that churn so that those smaller single families, which are entry level livable for a small family, they can get into those and seniors can move into different houses.
Well, I mean,
So,
like-
or smaller ones like
Yeah,
yours.
like you say, like
Yep.
townhouses where you don't have that.
Yep, so that's one thing that you'll see. So you'll also notice, to your point, Commissioner, that our renters and our owners, for the renters, the one-person household is 58% of folks renting here, and owners, 31% of the folks that own their houses are a single-family household. And then we've got two-person households at that 37.8%. So we have a lot of smaller households, which is why, even though our population has sort of plateaued, we need more homes to accommodate the same amount of people, because instead of having 5 folks living in a house, it's 1.7. So now you need twice as many homes to accommodate the same population. So there's some of that going on as well. And we had them look at all of this so we could get that. Low rental vacancy rates across all of the products and price points. Overall, we have almost 1,300 units here in the city of Hibbing for 31 properties. There's only 4.4 of a vacancy rate, and they're mainly due to the inability to turn those units over because they need paint, a little bit of touch up here and there, a new door, a new window, those sorts of things. And there's a lack of available contractors, and so some of those, timelines for the contractors to come in and do that work is sort of pushing out that vacancy. There's also about 200 housing vouchers available in the city of Hibbing that are being unused. Our market rate rentals right now, there's 460 units, 15 properties, less than the market. 5 to 7% vacancy is market equilibrium. And so we're well below that in our market rate rentals. Average monthly rent, though, is only $1.09 per square foot. That makes it really hard for new developers to come in and build multifamily developments or apartment buildings and make those deals pencil out, because they really need those rents to be at $2 to $2.50 a square foot. And we struggle with that to be able to rent that out right now. But we've got to do some work on that. And then our affordable and subsidized rental units, we have 810 of those. They have a little bit higher vacancy rate right now, but that's a lot due to the HRA is talking about the fact that she's struggling to get contractors in to turn those over post-pandemic. So
what
we're
is the
working on
rate between the market rate and the people that are a subsidized rate. I mean, we have a lot more subsidized rate than we do have market, right?
Actually, yes, for the multifamily, but not
Right.
necessarily for single family.
Right.
So you'll see that right here, remember you were talking about your house would be considered a nice, small sort of starter home, right? What we're talking about there is naturally occurring affordable housing, and 96% of market rate units are available to folks making 50% of area median income or less, meaning they naturally fall into the range where most of our folks could afford them, just based on when they were built and the size. So we've got, you can see 78% of the units are at 30% of area median income. 283 of them are in that 50% of area median income. And then we've only got 6 at that 60%, 8 units for people at 80% of area median, and none available for folks over the area median income. So we are desperately in need of those shallow subsidy units. We have plenty of deep subsidy units, and we need to get into the shallow subsidy or market rate rents. That's what we're really looking for.
I would think that with what Icorn did out there at that property is just a prime example of how fast, if you could get those up, that they would, people are looking to sell their homes, but they don't have a place to go if they want
Correct.
to stay in this area.
Right, and all the data is backing that anecdotal evidence up. So, we work with Bruce Icorn or Legend Homes at the EDA, lending some money into his construction to continue to build those units. And he's done that a couple of different times with the EDA and paid those off and sold those units as fast as he can build them.
Right.
So, anecdotally and data is backing up that exact fact. So assisted living is struggling a little bit, and that's mainly due to a worker shortage and lack of options beyond that subsidized and assisted living. So 46% of our units are assisted living right now. And again, right there, 5 to 7% vacancy is market equilibrium. That means anybody who wants a unit can get one because there's one available, that sort of a thing. So we don't necessarily need a lot more in that area. There's few homes for sale these past few years. You can see again that there were 9 homes for sale under that 100,000 mark. And then if you go up into that higher rate, like you were talking about, Commissioner, there were only 3 units for sale in that 300 to 400 unit range. And so we need to be doing multiple different facets of this housing solution and creating both move-in units and also that higher end unit. If we can create that higher end single family dwelling, then that churn will happen for folks who are living in those smaller units to move into the larger, more expensive unit at this point, is what we're seeing in our data. All right, so lot inventory now for new construction. Right now, we have sufficient lot supply in the near term only. So what that means is over the next year or so, we might have enough lots to build what is needed. But there's 7 active subdivisions with lots, so 93 lots available. Most subdivisions were platted 10 plus years ago, so we haven't done a lot of work since then.
Where are those 96 lots? I'd like to know where those 96 lots are.
Right.
Where
quite
are
a-
those located?
Yep,
I mean,
and so.
is there anything out there now, or are they just there? Is there any, obviously the lots are there, but obviously they're sitting there in weeds right now, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
You are preaching exactly what I want to be, which is why I'm in front of you tonight, because what I want to do next is undertake a land analysis, a land use analysis, and get them all ready, shovel ready for development, so that we know exactly where are the lots, who owns them, how do you contact them to purchase them, what the price is, and has the phase 1 been done, what other things, are they level for development, all those sorts of things. So that's exactly why I'm talking to you tonight, because that's the next thing I want to do with this information that we have from our housing study. So I am so happy that you're asking the exact same questions I was, because this is where we need to go. So the new construction market, like we talked about, it targets those move-up buyers, as you were saying. The recent pricing has been anywhere from $132,000 to that $350,000 mark for that new construction. There's not a lot of, we have very few builders right now, and they're all local, and we don't have anybody that's doing production in a similar way to, say, Legend Homes, Mr. Icorn, right? Where he'll build 5 townhomes at a time. That's the largest production that we have right now. So again, the city is working to attract that production development so that we could do a little bit larger scale once we get ready for that. And I'll tell you how we're working to get ready for that. So our survey overview, this is just who all responded to it. That can be in your packet, and we don't need to really cover all of that. There were some sample comments. They were talking about some blight, lack of builders and contractors. They want more Habitat for Humanity housing, because guess what? Habitat has been building for sure 2 homes a year in Hibbing every year, which has been good for a certain buyer in our community. The need for condos, townhomes, twin homes, exactly as you are talking about right here, and enforce some rental properties, which we're working on. And then they wanted some diversity in the housing stock and more housing for all types and incomes. So the demand then is for 580 general occupancy units through 2035. This is in the single-family units, not the multifamily or rental units. So these are, or sorry, this is the rental side, not the homeowner side. 184, we need to develop 184 market rate rental units between now and 2035. And we haven't built a new apartment building in the city of Hibbing since when, Pat?
Marshview Meadows.
Marshview Meadows was the last one that I know of.
Yeah.
And that was 2010, 12?
10, 12.
So we
And
got
that-
some work to do here.
Marshview Meadows was actually planned for 3 buildings,
Right.
and then a bunch of single-family homes along the front.
Yep.
And I know that that street was actually designed to go farther south and into the next deal, but there's been no progress since then.
Correct. And I think
And
those are
is-
some of the properties that are available and platted, and they're considering those are part of the 90 lots ready for development.
Right, and that, at least most of the infrastructure is on that for sewer, water, whatnot.
Right.
There's other stuff like Erickson Road, there's 4 or 5 lots out there. There's an easement for a sewer through the backwoods, which I don't think should be done. But that's the way that land was plotted prior to 2010. That might, I don't even know if that one's on your radar for homes. It's one of the reasons why I was looking to buy a lot, and I threw that one out right away, because the first person that goes in has got to put in the main sewer and main water for all 4 homes.
Right, Commissioner Prokopchnik, that's what we're looking at, right? Is how do we get those things over that hurdle, right?
Right.
And get those, like as the homeowner or developer, you're not finding that out when you go to look to buy it, and here's all the costs associated. What's the help out there? How do I do this? Is the city willing to partner? Has somebody done something, right? So that's the unknowns we're trying to make known and get some solutions in front of folks to see if that'll incentivize some of the private folks to do some more work. So here's the demand. There's also demand for 640 senior housing units by 2028. And you can see that they're looking for market rate, not an independent living, right? So there's a lot of folks who want to own a townhome, buy into a real life cooperative, something like that, and have a maintenance-free sort of living style, but independently. Because they're pretty active and want to be snowbirds and move around our community and those sorts of things. So we need to come up with solutions for them. So the 4 sale housing recommendations that our consultant came back with is, in the single family, recommend a 3 to 5 year lot supply. So if we have 1 year right now, we need to come up with 3 to 5 year and start working on what does that look like to move forward, so that we're always working on a 3 to 5 year lot supply. We're gonna do that by coming up with a land use analysis for housing specifically. And
I
so-
like excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, this can
interrupt
be
you.
this can be
I didn't mean
informal.
to
I'm good with
interrupt
that.
you. I've heard you say this about 3 or 4 times now, about how the problem is builders. okay? Because of the fact that they're busy or whatever, there's just not enough people to handle that. Is there, obviously, they're building houses in, you know, down south, I mean, obviously, like towards Minneapolis, because I mean, going to Minneapolis now, you get to Hinckley, it's like you're in Minneapolis now, you know, how that goes, all those farmlands now are all houses out there. And maybe we need to do something a little bit different, is if these people here are so busy because they can't handle it, maybe there need to be some contacts made down in that area to see, would you be interested in, if we get some, that type. Because, I mean, obviously, when you want a house, you want it. I mean, you don't want to wait 2 or 3 years or to get it, get it where you can live in it. Because if you're selling a house, like if somebody lives in, say, Chicago or something, what are they doing? They're looking at places up at the lake right now, okay? Those houses are selling for, $300,000 to $500,000, and people from Chicago are selling their houses for over $1 million anyhow.
Right.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is that, they're available, and maybe some of those people, and I do know some of those people that do live, the winter's gonna be pretty tough out there, They like the amenities of town, the amenities of the grocery store, the amenities of the gas, all of those type of situations. And, we need to, maybe somehow or another, which this is in the future, but closer, is that once we get this settled, is where the lots are gonna be and things like that, that maybe, somebody puts up a spec home, to show. It's always nice to show somebody a house as compared to show it to them on paper, that
Correct.
type of situation.
Yes, Commissioner,
And
so.
maybe the city could help them on that situation of,
Right.
we'll build, build this and here you go, we'll go, I'm not trying to put it all on the city, cause it's not there,
No, but
Yeah.
directly to your point, I had gone and asked developers in southern cities, hey, how come you're not building up here? What would it take you to build up here? What are
Right.
you looking for, right? And they were telling me at that time, the deals don't pencil, we don't know where your lots are, we don't have any site certainty. If you can start to make change on those things, then maybe we'll start taking a look at it. Developers are busy everywhere, right? And they can always go and find some other community to build in. So
Right.
if it looks hard when they look at our community, the city of Hibbing, they're just not gonna come up here. So I had asked a few questions and I got some information back. And so one, we needed a comprehensive housing needs analysis because they asked me, what are your rents per square foot? What's a market rate rent? And I didn't know that. So now we have that. And then they said, how many lots do you have available? Are they shovel ready? Is the infrastructure ready? What does it cost per square foot to get infrastructure there? What's the next, where does the city want to prioritize development, right? So that's why if we do, and Pat and I have been talking about this quite a bit, a land analysis around housing development and getting some of these lots to that next stage so that we have some knowns about them, that makes it easier for a builder to say, yeah, I'll take a chance on 10 homes there because it makes sense in my portfolio at this
Right.
point. And then we can capture them when they have a lull, right? Because that lull is going to happen at certain points based on what their market's doing down in the cities or in Duluth or even in Wisconsin somewhere or, Brainerd, Bemidji, what have you, right? So, right, we might need to attract some of the workforce even. If our developers and our builders are going to run the projects because they're good general contractors, they might just need to hire more workforce because that's one of the other issues. So we're going to have to attract that up here. So some of that work has been done. We've asked some of those questions. And yes, that's exactly why we're presenting to you, because that's how you think, right? As you drive around your community and look and say, well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. Yes, the data is showing that. Exactly what you're thinking anecdotally. So we're right on track here as to what makes sense. And I really appreciate all these questions and this input because this is good stuff.
Well, one of the things with construction, a lot of it is volume too, and that's where you're talking.
Exactly.
To attract a developer, if they're looking at coming up to build 1 or 2 homes or something, it probably isn't feasible. Like you say, they can't make enough money to make it worthwhile. Whereas if you can get something set up where you could say, okay, over the next 2 years, we're gonna need 25 homes and get it going, then you have a little better chance of getting people interested in
100%.
doing it.
Exactly. And if I have the need in Hibbing for 10 homes and Chisholm has 5 and Buell has 5, that's not that far away, right? For them, that's like their suburbs. So that makes sense to them too. So if we can start making this, kind of region-wide is what I'm collaborating around. Every Monday I get together with some folks talking housing across the Iron Range, and we're working on those kinds of things. How do we get the communities to sort of collaborate so that when Hibbing knows I have this many lots and I have this, this is supposed to be single family and they're all plotted and that sort of thing. But then when I'm working to get my next development ready, the city of Chisholm has 20 homes as well, right? So we can kind of take that all into account, and a rising tide sort of lifts all boats so that we can keep moving it forward and keep those developers busy while I'm getting my next lots together with Pat.
And as we know, we go the way the mines go. There's no question about it. And the mines are doing well right now. They're hiring people. The trade schools are getting people ready to go into the mines or go into some type of company that would be an off-brand of the mines. So these people these kids, these are the people that want to stay up here. They don't want to leave and go to Minneapolis, or they don't want to go to someplace else. They like it up here because of the hunting and the fishing. And so those are the people we have to target, along with the people that are older, that want to, get into something that they don't have. We need the townhouses, like you say, and we also need the new construction houses. Because,
Right.
these, I hate to say it, but these people are making a lot of money where they can do it, and it's like everybody else's family. Two people are always working most of the time. So, there's always things that, like, daycares will get more business and,
Correct.
that, type of situation. But we can't put ourselves behind the eight ball with this.
Right.
We have to be more aggressive, I would say.
Correct. And so the demand for 85 single-family homes after the existing 99 vacant lots are absorbed already, right? So we know that if we're here, we need to develop the next set of lots to get them ready.
Right.
And, to create that churn from the current housing stock into new housing stock so that people can buy the existing housing stock. In multifamily, there's demand right now for over 60 units. There's strong demand for association-maintained products, which is popular with older adults and senior households, but it's also popular with young professionals. I have talked to our employers around the community. L&M Radiator right now is bringing in 26 workers for a 30-day or a 60-day or a 90-day stint, putting them up somewhere in town so that they can attract enough workforce, because it doesn't exist here right now. And so that's because housing doesn't exist here right now. So we'd really like to assist our employers in the community by developing more housing so they can attract workers who then can take a permanent job because they can buy a house. So that's some of what we've got going on. You can see down here that this potential housing types, they're really talking about those twin homes, townhomes, detached homes, quad homes, row homes, all of those kinds of things. So what we need to make sure then is if our units, the 99 lots, are platted for a single family home, is that actually what we need? Or should we rezone some of those for different types of development? And so that's where this land use, working with Pat, would come up with, here's what we need, here's what we have available, this is how they're zoned right now. Can we figure out a way to zone them appropriately to attract the right developer? So, Pat and I have been talking quite extensively on some of this to move this forward. There is demand for 335 units of rental housing. No projects currently in the pipeline, not one. We need 184 market rate rental units, and not one is in the pipeline. That's some work we need to do. Here they're talking potential concepts of townhomes, multi-story, mixed income, those sorts of things. Senior housing, there's strong demand through this decade and beyond. And they're really talking about those market rate and shallow subsidy. So, deep subsidy, only 34 units do we need. So that's quite a difference, right?
What about real life? Obviously they have two here.
Yep.
Have they ever talked to them about putting another one
We
up?
talked a little bit about that. Yep. Some folks have been in contact with them, and I know Pat has talked to them in the past. I don't know if they're interested right now. I haven't heard back from them.
Well,
if
I
they're
just know as a personal thing, when my mother, before she went into an assisted living in Duluth, was that she had money down if there was a place open, and it was on a waiting list. Well, after some while, you know, they gave the money back because they didn't have anything, you know? So obviously there was a demand if they had a list already, and everything is filled there. And it seems like it gets filled real quick if
Yep,
something happens, you know?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
Hill-
and so,
Hillcrest Adams is shut down right now? The one on First Ave, correct, by 25th Street?
yes, I believe that's the one. No, the Adams I thought was,
Golden? Not the
Golden
Adams,
Crest is.
Adams
Adams
is
is-
okay.
Adams is open.
It's the
Yeah,
other
that
one.
one's on Third,
Same
right?
street, right up from
25th
there.
and First Avenue.
Yeah,
What's that?
25th and First Avenue.
old nursing.
Right across from the,
You
gas
mean the old
station.
nursing home there?
Yeah.
That
what's
was
going
the
on
old
with that one?
Golden Crest.
Yeah,
Hillcrest.
Crest.
That's
yeah, that's
Hillcrest, okay.
close.
was.
Okay.
The owner of Hillcrest purchased that. They were going to make that into assisted living. It may have been open for about a year.
Right,
It's been vacant now for 7 years.
right. And then the Third Avenue and 23rd, kind of by Fort and Company there,
Across the street from.
across the street.
Right,
What,
yeah.
that
I
got
don't know, the
changed,
front
right?
part was supposed to be, it was supposed to stay, but the back part they were using for, was it homeless or something like that? Was
No.
it-
We have,
did they-
Both buildings are purchased for the homeless shelter.
Oh, the
Yeah,
whole
Home on
building.
the
was
Range.
purchased
That used to be
then.
memory
Oh, they
care.
purchased
Both
all
of
of
them,
it.
they're
Oh,
big.
yeah, but the
One
one right
they're
next
using,
to it
one's
on the other
over
side of the
now.
parking
Oh,
lot,
I see,
Yeah.
okay.
the one right next to it on the other side of the parking lot is still operational.
The assisted living,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adams is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Adams is still,
Adams has always
yep.
been.
Yep. So a couple of the key takeaways then is, you know, our households are declining slower than population, right? So that's good news for us because, you know, now you only have a single person living in a household instead of three. So even when one person moves away or some such, that doesn't mean the household goes away. There's growth in that 65-plus age cohort, so we need some alternative living options. 73% of households are one or two person households in our community. That's a lot.
73 is a huge amount.
Exactly.
When I read that in there too, I found that hard to believe.
Yep.
That's 73%.
Right now, Hibbing is a very strong job importer. So 27% of workers commute 25 miles or more to Hibbing for employment. Some of the folks, when we talk to them, that's over 1,000 people. They said that if there was housing available in Hibbing, they would buy it, but there wasn't, so they're commuting. Very low rental vacancy rates, older stock, there's pent-up demand for that rental housing. Senior housing market is poised for growth. New product will be needed, which will then free up other housing stocks, so young families or, you know, young individuals or a single individual can move into a smaller home. The for-sale market is strong for lower-priced homes in good condition. There's tight supply on that, and we're working with some individuals around some owner-occupied rehab strategies to maintain and fix up that stock so that we can, you know, keep that as a real viable option. New construction then targets those move-up buyers, and inflation, higher mortgage rates, and high construction costs right now are what are kind of impacting that development. So there's higher costs plus higher interest rates, which means deals are hard to pencil, so we're really working with developers on what does that look like.
You know,
for the long term.
I would think when people are looking at coming to Hibbing, they have a family, obviously, I think they want to be in a community where their kids can be closer to a school, which is always big, I would think, you know. And obviously, I mean, I have some relatives that have did that, have bought houses around the Lincoln School and the high school and the Greenhaven School and those type of things because of the fact of the schools. And, you know, I mean, obviously, if you take it like around the high school, there's a lot of older homes, but they're all the nice big ones. So, you know, we gotta, I just don't think we can go too far out. I mean, we have to be more centralized with those lots of that, you know, that you have available, like if it's in the city limits and that type of thing, you know, the limit of, you know, how can I say, centralization type
Yep.
of thing.
Well, 100%, Commissioner. We have to look at density in where we're developing, right? So I've been working with Pat Green on the Hill project, which is behind the Highland Park neighborhood. We have 70 acres up there, 22 acres, which needs to be single-family dwellings. There's a quick claim deed and a restriction on that. But the other 46 to 50 acres is open for what works with topography and what we can, attract to that area. So we have been doing some site certainty around that area. But what we are looking to do is do the most cost-effective development that we can, meaning we get density around our infrastructure dollar. So I'm not running a water pipe and a sewer pipe a mile to serve 4 homes. If I'm running that water, sewer, and utilities and things, I'm serving 100 new units. So we have really been working with Pat Green on looking at all of that and starting to plan that out. And we will be moving into phase 2 on that particular development right in the center of our city. Community engagement will start this spring.
So what about, like when we keep talking utilities and we keep, talking, has this been brought in front of the Public Utilities Commission yet?
Yes, it has.
Oh,
I was gonna say, and yeah, I think Luke has been keeping them informed because I've been working with staff at the HPU.
I mean, it's new to us, so that's why.
Yeah, yep, yeah, we just started talking about that one, and that's where, I've been talking and working with Pat, and I said, maybe I should bring this before the Planning and Zoning Commission, because as we start to look at a land use analysis, I will pay for it through my EDAs, or through my, my community development dollars, but that doesn't mean that it's not gonna come before you for various parts of this. And so I wanted to get your engagement and buy-in and get your thoughts on it. Sounds like we're really in alignment on a lot of the things that, needs to happen. And so my thoughts are, as we move forward, is to continue bringing this in front of you with all of this information to kind of walk this forward so that you're part of the team going.
I did read a little bit in here about how they're saying, we should have lesser restrictions. I don't understand what lesser restrictions as far as new building and things like, obviously, we're not gonna let them build a mausoleum or something like that, don't get me wrong, but how do other communities, address these situations as far as like, let's say smaller towns like Chisholm, Buell, those, obviously, they're smaller. Virginia, obviously, they're, they seem to be a little more they have some things going on, so, are we out of line with what we do, or are we in line with everybody else's, let's use Virginia as an example. Are they less restrictive than we are, or more, or how does that work?
So I did see that language in here. This consultant works statewide. And so I do know that Rochester and some of those places that have a real super demand for housing, they have worked to align the type of housing they're building with the current land availability. Now, Hibbing doesn't necessarily have a concern about available land, right? We have
Right.
186 square miles. We're we're the largest city in the state of Minnesota.
Right.
So we have a little bit different focus. And so that's where when we take this land use on, Pat will be an integral part of that team, because I don't know that that language that we need to be less restrictive is actually what we need here. It might mean more aggressive in other areas. And
Well,
so
that's what kind of got me confused, like, I didn't think like we're really restrictive. It didn't seem to me, but I thought, are we? If somebody else, if they put this in there, did they find, okay, Rochester is a lot different than being.
right, exactly. And
here,
that's
yeah.
where we will get a little bit more clarity around what that means and what makes sense for our community working with Pat, because we're not going to, create rules for a certain area that don't suit our town, right? So, Pat's been doing this a long time. He knows what the rest of the range looks like and what their zoning looks like. He's talked to a lot of different folks. I don't know, we're not that.
Yeah, zoning wise, we're not, more restrictive than Chisholm, Virginia, Buell. And we have a lot of land, but we may or may not have a lot of sewer and water to that 100,
Yeah.
So right now, we average 10 to 15 new homes a year, year after year, sometimes it's less. And all of those homes are normally, I'd say 80% they buy an acre, they have their own well and septic, or they're on Town Line Road, or we just had 2 built this last year. I think in our urban area, what we're looking at would be our zoning to maybe have single-family home plus sort of like where Marshfield Meadows is, you'd have single-family homes and a multifamily, so you have mixed use to get your higher density and more homes on those lots. And that's what a developer looks at when they come in, like in the cities, outside the cities, is a cul-de-sac and 20 single-family homes. Maybe next to that, like in Hermantown, they're building a big apartment building. But you have mixed use, so that maybe in the future will be coming to the planning commission for this land use. And we look at a different type of zoning for that.
Kind of like the way Marshview Meadows was originally planned with the 3 big
That was
buildings.
a planned development for
Yep.
the 2 lots. Yep, and
Yeah.
that's sort of mixed use.
Mixed use.
We called it a planned development, somebody else might call it an R1 through R4 use. Yep,
Yep.
and, because every town can make their,
So out there, George, is there, water and sewer other than at that one apartment that's out there, or that one big?
yes.
I mean, no, cause you said it was gonna be like 2 phases or 3 phases at Marsh.
Marshview, I know the water's in, electric's in,
Okay,
and, the lots that are facing to the east, when you first drive in there,
okay,
and there's single valley houses on both sides. I know all the infrastructure is in for homes to be built on both sides. The water curb stops are in, electric, secondary PEDs are in to run power to each individual house that may or may not go up, depending
Right.
if it's a single valley or maybe a multifamily home, whatever the case may be, all that infrastructure's in. The road was continued on. There's a valve for the city water, and sewer was like capped right there because it's coming down the hill. It hits that and then goes towards 31st. That was all pre-planned for the future expansion and put in that way.
Right.
So-
So there is some ready, right? I'm trying to be cognizant of time here. I've got to switch everything over for the EDA meeting starting right at 6, and we got to go live with that one as well. So I just want to make sure that,
so we shouldn't ask any more questions, just keep
right,
going.
so at this time, I just wanted to get this
Especially you.
information in front of you. Let you know that Pat and I are working on this together. This information will come back in front of you as we start to move this forward. And Pat will be an integral part of the team, and, you know, things will come in front of you for some, requests and those sorts of things as we go forward. Some of it, if the city owns, I'll be coming in front of you. And if we're looking to rezone things, what have you, we'll be working with a community engagement process to do that. So I just wanted to bring this in front of you and get you, get your input and engagement on it, and look forward to a lot more discussion as we go forward. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to
I was gonna say, at this point, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our new business for now. Next thing on the agenda is open discussion. Have any?
I don't have anything.
Okay, I guess then we're ready for, move for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.